Everybody, it's Marcus. So in today's video, we're finally going to get to it. The full review of the GFX 100 Mark II. So this is going to be a pretty long video because you guys have asked me to test a lot of certain things. So I wrote them all down and did it in one review. Okay, so use the timestamps down below and you can skip around because we're going to look at all these files individually. There'll be raw files as well below so you can find those. So if there's anything in particular you're looking to see, just skip to it and avoid the rest of the stuff. So we're going to test focus speed in all modes, blackout in single shot mode, blackout in the fast burst rates, dynamic range and colors in single shot, 16-bit versus 14-bit and 12-bit for 8 frames per second. Video autofocus. Autofocus in 8 frames a second. With eye autofocus on at shallow depth of field, does it really work? Video files when edited. The focus speed versus my GFX 50 Mark II. And just my overall opinion of this camera. Is this the camera we've all been waiting for? So my next 2 videos coming up are going to be the GFX 100 Mark II versus the R5, because a lot of people ask me how much better is it than it used to be and can it compete with full frame, the best of the full frames. So buckle up, skip around, it's going to be a long video. I want you guys to watch this because I have a new course that's up, totally streamable. It's really awesome. I've been working on it for a long time, so watch this and then we'll hop into the video. People see thousands of images every day and they don't stop to look at a perfectly lit image because it just doesn't speak to them. This is going to make your images really stand out. Hey everybody, it's Marcus. So first of all, I'd like to say I'm excited to share Creative Lighting 2.0. That's Creative Lighting and Creative Gels 2.0. So I've been working on this for about 1.5 years now to really make this the best lighting course out there, period. I have over 30 lessons in creative lighting, creative gelling, and I'm not using expensive lights, expensive modifiers. Like I said, I've spent over 1 year making this the most comprehensive lighting course on the entire internet. There's over 30 easy to navigate lessons from beginning to end. Start of the shoot, what I use, how I shot it, the walkthrough, the raw file, the editing afterwards. You get to see from the very start of the shoot how I set it up, how I light it, how I got the shot. Look through my camera as I'm getting the shot. I show you all the things that can go wrong and what I would change in live time to make sure you get the right shot. Then we look at the raw files and we edit them together. And I want you to know something. All of these looks are being had in camera. I'm not doing any of this in Photoshop. There's something really freeing about being able to get the look that you want inside your own camera. I'm teaching you all the tricks that I've been doing for years now. So I've taught hundreds and hundreds of people at my in-person workshops and literally thousands online with these courses. I've got nothing but positive reviews. I take care of my customers. I'm even offering a 30-day money-back guarantee on this course. That's how much I know you're going to love this course. It's really going to free up your creative, artistic ability. So this special 2.0 relaunch price is only for a limited time, so don't wait on this offer. Your credentials will be emailed right to you. You can watch it all from your phone. It's totally streamable now. You can download all the raw files, all the Lightroom presets that we're going to use, my Photoshop action set, all inside the course. It's really easy. Nobody else online is doing it like this, guys. It's Marcus. I love you. I hope to see you inside the lessons. See you later. So first, everybody, let's start with the blackout test. I just want you guys to see this because this is a big deal for a lot of people. I'm starting out AFC, continuous, and single shot mode. So just like any other, GFX camera out there, we're going to see what the blackout looks like in real time through my lens. You can see the autofocus is very sticky. It's switching eye to eye. Now, that's what the blackout looks like on the 100II. It's pretty much identical blackout-wise to the 100S. And it's faster, not as much blackout as the 50S2 that I have. And obviously it feels a lot faster than the 50S2 because of the new focusing system that's in all the newer cameras. But blackout wise and single shot mode, you're pretty much at the same blackout time as the 100S if you're used to using that camera, or the 100. They're so similar, it's like splitting hairs as far as that. Now let's go ahead and flip it over into low speed continuous. Okay, now 2 frames per second burst. This is where I'd always use this camera if it was me. Even just taking static images and just taking them quick and letting go, because you can see that the blackout mode is a lot faster. There's still blackout there obviously, and you probably won't be taking this many shots in that mode, right? But I'm just trying to prove a point here that this is where this camera, I believe, should live. You're not losing any bit rate, and we're gonna look at that in a little bit just to see if you can tell any difference in overexposed, underexposed, the correct exposure files whenever we're changing into the different bit rates. So that's where I'd leave it. Now we're going into high speed at 5 frames per second, and the blackout is pretty much, you know, it's better, it's gone. And you have, sometimes you're taking multiple shots now because it's hard to let go of the shutter button that quickly, but you can see it's still sticky, and we're going to see how in focus all these shots are. And I'm not doing this camera any favors as far as like not zooming in. We're going to go into 200%, and we're going to have her walking towards the lens, backlit, front lit, all that stuff. But this is just a blackout test. Now let's stick it into 8 frames per second. Now the bit rate is dropping here on the files, but we're going to actually see, can you even tell the difference? It's really hard for me to tell, just to be honest with you. So look, now the blackout mode is, you know, or the blackout that you're looking at is you know, it's pretty non-existent. You see it the first frame you take just for a second, but then these other frames that are getting shot by accident, because I'm not holding it down, it's just taking more than one at a time. You know, there's no blackout there. So it's just the way I'd use it is 2 frames per second, you know, the low continuous, and just hit the button as quick as I can, you know, to take the shot. And that's where I'd live with this camera. Okay, so let's get into through the lens on the autofocus test. So we're looking at backlit, heavy backlit, 8 frames per second with IAF on, and she's just walking toward the camera. And we're going to look at all these files, obviously, just to show you how many it hit, how many it didn't. So this is a pretty hard test, right? And I'm shooting these wide open with the 55 at 1.7, okay? So now I dropped it down to 5 frames per second, heavy backlight, and then it looks pretty snappy in camera, but you know, that only tells part of the story. Now, this is the hardest, probably the hardest test for any camera to nail, is heavy backlight, shallow depth of field, walking towards the camera, okay? And then we're gonna do somewhere she's just walking towards the camera with, you know, front light. And then I just do 2 frames per second just for giggles, just to see what will happen there. All right, so now typical, you know, front light. It was super cold, eyes were watering, nose was running, it was like 25 degrees. 8 frames a second. It looks pretty snappy. She's getting closer, she's getting closer. It loses just a little bit when you get closer. We were getting close to minimum focusing distance on the 55 though. All right, now we're going down to 5 frames per second. Same test. And you know, in camera it looks pretty good. Now this is a pretty tough scenario for most cameras, walking straight towards a shallow depth of field, but the lighting right now isn't presenting much of a challenge. You know, it's just directional low sunlight on the model's face. And now 2 frames per second, just so we can see what that'll look like. Alright guys, so this is painful, and this is why I've moved on from my 50S2. Some of the best files I've ever seen, but with the 55 1.7 on there, and same with every lens, just look at the process. I don't use IAF because it doesn't work worth a damn. Alright, so I'm just finding the eye manually every time, and I'm waiting for it to zit, 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 and then refocus, zit, zit, find it again, make sure they didn't move. Get a pose that I really don't want, a facial expression that I don't want because she's already changed. Zip, 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 zip. Blackout. Try it again. Start from scratch. I can't deal with that anymore, even though the files are incredible. It's just outdated technology. Versus the slowest mode in continuous on the GFX 100II is this, and I can use IAF. I don't have to mess around and try to move the focusing point around. I can snap more pictures. I can get moments that I want to get. I don't have to wait for it to zit, 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 and re-rack and refocus. And this is just on the slowest. This is 2 frames per second, but I'm not even using this 2 frames per second. I'm just using it to get the blackout down. And of course you can switch into 5 frames per second, 8 frames a second, and changes everything up for you. Now, I've made up my mind about what camera I want to use. I've put off upgrading for such a long time just because of, I think, rumors, speculation, and people saying, you know, the 50S2 files or 50R files are so much better than 100, 100S, 100II, and they're different. They are different, but I don't think they're necessarily that much better, especially if I'm missing so many shots. Okay, so video files. I'm just gonna let you see untouched 4K 60, the highest bit depth, the highest everything out of the camera with the super fast card in there. Handheld, I'm just walking around the model. I have her walk towards me a little bit, the 55 1.7 wide open. So this is rough and rugged lighting, you know what I mean? I'm just exposing normally how I'd expose, you know, video files. I just want to see how it focuses. Now this, and then I'll play it back with the color grade and slowed down. Obviously, since I shot it in 4K 60, I want to see what it looks like slowed down to 25 frames per second, 24 frames per second, sorry. So it's doing a really good job, and you'll see in the second clip after this one with my son that sometimes if you turn IAF off in video and face detect off, that it does a little bit better, because you can see at the end when she gets really close, a lot of times it'll slowly lose focus and then you know, re-rack. You can see how cold it is. She's crying, tears coming out of her eyes. Okay, so slight color grade. Okay, actually I pushed this file pretty heavily just because this light is not the light that you want to shoot video in. Okay, but slowed down, I think it looks really good, and we'll compare it with R5 video and the way I normally grade it next week or next video. And I think handheld, me jumping around like I'm freezing cold, because I was just trying to get, you know, footage to test this out. The IBIS works really well. Now you can see that sometimes, you know, people usually don't shoot video at 1.7. I do a lot of times, but you know, I'll shoot scenes until I get them, you know, in focus. I think that when you start to get really close to the camera and back away, you can see that it drags a little bit, but it doesn't rack. It drags in a way that's kind of pleasing. It's just certain times when you start to get closer, like this, it takes it a second. And then when you start to back away, if you back away too quick, it takes it another little bit. So I think that's the challenge that I've found with this setup for video. Files look great. No problem with it recording. I have a really fast card in there, but at the same time, even with the same fast card on my R5, every once in a while, it'll give me a couple errors. I didn't experience this at all with this camera, and I don't know if this camera overheats or not, just because it's, if anything overheated on this day, I would say don't buy it, because it was like 2 degrees outside. It's so cold, she's crying. Okay, so for video, I would say if you're not going to be running directly towards the camera, like only like cameras like the R5 can handle, I would say it's a go. It's like a strong go. And this handheld out in my driveway with my son with a light grade on it, and had him walking towards the camera, and I turned the face detect off in video, so it's kind of just doing zone here. And I think that when he walks towards the camera, and he's backing up now because he didn't really want to do this, I had to bribe him, but and he walks towards the camera, it didn't do the same, you know, the same issue as before. And this is just handheld. It kind of lost him for a second there, but it's acceptable is what I would say. Wide open up 1.7. Now, I wouldn't use this camera and buy it for a video camera if this is the only reason you're going to have it. But as a camera that can shoot video and shoot pretty damn good video for medium format, my goodness, yes, 100% yes. Okay, everybody, so for this portion of the video, we're going to look at the results of the walking autofocus test. And this is just going to be, you know, straight direct light, giving it something to focus on, and then we'll do the one with the backlit test and see how this camera really fares. So I'm gonna really, you know, push this thing to the limit here, because I'm going to put this on 100% zoom in here, and then what I'm going to do is, sometimes it takes a while for these files to load. I'm sorry, this might take a minute, but you know, we want to get the actual results. Okay, that's tack sharp. That's the first shot in the sequence, and I play it on the screen. You can see how fast she's walking. This is at 8 frames per second, and this is obviously going to be in 12-bit mode, because that's what 8 frames per second is. But remember, I'm at 2500th of a second, ISO 100. I could have been ISO 80, but I'm that's a new thing for me. I haven't shot below ISO 100 since the D850. I just forget that it went to 80 as base ISO, but regardless, it's still fine. 55 millimeters at 1.7. These are wide open, walking towards the camera. That's the hardest thing for any camera to do, is shallow depth of field, autofocus on, walking directly towards the camera, and we'll see what our hit rate is. I'm not going to do every single one of these because I've already done it, and the results are very surprising. All right, you know, shot 2, there's a lot of shots to go through here, so you can skip ahead if you don't want to look at all of these, but I'm not going to look at all of them. I'm just going to give you a baseline for what I think. You know, shot 2 is in focus. Just skip ahead. I already know the results here, but I just want to show you guys so we can see it. Skip ahead again about 4 shots. Let's see if we nail critical focus here on the eyes. Yeah, it may be slightly back focused, just a hint, but nothing crazy. Look at one with our eyes open so we can really see. Skipping down through here, there's about 38 shots in this burst, right? And this one is dead on in focus. Skip ahead. And the cool thing about what I found with this system is, if it's out of focus on a shot in 8 frames a second mode, and the hardest scenario where someone's walking right at the camera, that's directly in focus. Usually the next shot is back in focus, so it's not like it just loses track and then it can't get back. In focus, let's see, rendering. These files are huge, you guys. This is a brand new Mac. And dead on in focus, sharp. All right, so we're just skipping ahead here. It was about 83% hit rate with this, and it would have been higher, and that's at 1.7. that's wide open. It would have been higher, and I'll show you why it's not higher, and where the camera does struggle is towards the end when someone gets closer. And we weren't quite at minimum focusing distance, and you've seen that in my video, part of this equation too, when I reviewed the video specs on here. Whenever you get pretty close to the camera, you see that's out of focus, that's back focus. This focus is right here on that one, and then to see if the next one, if it pops back in or not. When you start getting a little bit closer, it has more problems than it did further away. That's out of focus. The next shot in this sequence is back focused, and then the next shot after that really back focused. So you can see when you start to get closer to the camera, now we're back in focus. So 4 shots out of focus, and then it picked back up, right? I didn't hit the buffer or anything like that. It just, you know, it started nailing them again. And focus again. And then towards the end of this here, in focus again. See, it's still doing a good job. Then it starts to, it got the back eye. And now this is probably more the problem is, the closer you get on a wide open lens at 1.7, crazy razor thin depth of field. So I can't really fault the camera too much for this, you know. You wouldn't be wanting to shoot sports. This is in focus, this is dead on, but then you'll see these next 3, or the one before it, out of focus, then it locked on again, and then this was out of focus again. This is way out of focus, that's way out of focus. So 1 out of the last 5 here was in focus, and before that, out of this whole 32 or 33 shots, we missed about 3 of them. So it's really, really, really good in my opinion. Like, when you're dealing with getting really close at 1.7, which is more like a 1.4-ish, and you know, full frame equivalent here, it's razor thin depth of field. It's incredible that it could do that. Now, she wasn't sprinting towards the camera. If you want a camera that does that, you have to get like, you know, the new Sony, or the R5 can handle that, and it's high speed plus usually. But even at 1.4, you're gonna miss some shots. This camera really impressed me. Okay, but I'm gonna do this test again really quickly for you guys, and I bumped it down to 5 frames per second, and this will put you in 14-bit mode. We're gonna look at that in a second to discuss the bit rates, how they affect the image, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. For when you need this camera to actually perform, put it in 8 frames a second. It's not that big a deal, because here I'm gonna tell you at 5 frames per second, it's really nothing to write home about. There's nothing. I mean, you're getting fewer shots and a lot more shots that are out of focus. It's just the way it goes. That's in focus, okay. But I remember looking at these earlier. That's out of focus. I can tell before it even renders. It's back there on her hair. Out of focus. Out of focus. Out of focus. Whatever you're shooting, if you need something to track, put it in 8 frames a second. That's the only thing I would tell you. And then of course I did it in low continuous, and it was kind of a shit show, because we only have about 5 shots to pick from before she gets there, and you're going to hit a couple, you know. And of course when she's stationary, it did absolutely fine. It nailed every single one of them. But 8 frames a second is the magical thing on this camera. It actually works, and it works well for things that are pretty much anything besides someone who's running fast coming towards the camera. You wouldn't really want to shoot that at 1.7 anyway. All right, now I want to show you like a hell test, because I did something that with this camera in 8 frames a second just to see, and you never really shoot like this, but I wanted to see how it would perform with midday. Like the sun is right here, and you can see it's flaring the lens out. It's hard for any camera to focus on something moving towards the camera, heavy backlight like this, right? It's just, you'd never want to shoot like this, and I wouldn't shoot like this, but this is kind of like a hell test. And I'm going to go in here and see how it fares, because most modern cameras will struggle with this even. All right, so let's see. I'm going to get to some of these. And it's crazy because the majority of these are in focus. It was about the same hit rate as 8 frames a second with, you know, good lighting. You know, she's hazy because it's flaring out the camera, but she's in focus there, right? And I've showed on the screen how she was walking. You gotta let these render here. Big files, y'all. Big files. That's something you're gonna have to deal with on here. All right, and that's in focus. It's just hazy. And as she gets closer, let's see, what are the results for this? I can already tell it's gonna be in focus. It's just taking a long time to render with this screen recording too. See, tack sharp on the eyes. So that's pretty impressive, considering this is a medium format camera, right? And we're at 1.7. Terrible lighting directly in the camera, making it hard for the eye autofocus to grab. And the majority, if not, you know, like 85% of these are in focus. They're just super washed out because the flare is crazy. In focus again, you see how much flare is coming in there, and you never want to shoot like this. You wait till it's golden hour and it's nice and warm. But I just wanted to put the camera through hell to see, is it really a usable solution if this is going to be your camera, like not your second camera, your main camera, for anything except for, you know, actions photography. I would not choose this camera for action photography. That's something you want to get the R5. Look, it came right back in there at the end. It missed a couple, and that's the same thing we had with the good light test. That's in focus. That's really close when she's coming to the camera. Another couple steps and she would have blocked, you know, the sun right there. But that's hard for any damn camera to do, and for the medium format camera to actually track like this, it's really incredible. I couldn't be more impressed with this. I've been waiting on a camera from GFX, you know, like Fuji GFX medium format, that could do this forever. My GFX has always been my second camera that I wanted to be my first, but I couldn't rely on it for, you know, most of what I'm doing, mainly because even when I'm shooting static portraits, it's slow. Just the work speed gets on my nerves, and I always end up wondering, like, man, what would this have looked like had I used the GFX when I get done? But I'm like, you know, I can't sit around and wait, and the person I'm working with gets frustrated and you lose the moment. So now let's get into the meat and potatoes and see in 12-bit mode and our baseline for how these photos look in 16-bit mode, and what's the takeaway from that. Is 8-bit mode actually usable if you want great files? So let's look at that now. So a lot's been made online about the GFX 100II dropping to 12-bit whenever you have it in 8 frames per second. So that's the biggest, you know, thing that people are kind of up in arms about. So what I chose to do here, we do our dynamic range test every time we test a camera. I'm going to shoot all of these different shots, overexposed, correct exposure, and underexposed. And what I'm going to do right here is I'm going to shoot in single shot mode, low speed continuous, 5 frames per second and 8 frames per second. You can see I'm changing right now, and then we're going to walk through this together and look at these files in comparison. All of them underexposed, all of them correct exposure, and all of them overexposed, and we're going to push them back where they need to be in post and see how much are you really losing going from single shot to 8 frames per second in color depth and dynamic range. Is it really worth it? Are you giving up a whole arm and a leg in your files, or can you even tell the difference? So I'm going to show you right now what you have to look forward to if you have this camera in 8 frames per second, 5 frames per second versus single shot. Okay, so let's take a baseline shot here at 16-bit, and this is why I love GFX. This is why I've been telling you guys forever. There's nothing like it on the market, in my opinion, and I've shot pretty much everything, you know. I'm gonna reset this, and this is crap light. Now the video that's coming in a couple days, we're gonna compare this to the R5 because I shot my best lenses on the R5 here too. So same lighting scenario. It's not like we're gonna go into a different realm here and have perfect lighting for the R5 and not good lighting for the GFX, but that's coming up in a couple days for people that want to see the difference. This is just going to be a review of the 100II, so we're going to take a look at this and what it can do. I'm going to do all the same things to all these files, and we're just going to start out with baseline files, what it looks like taking a regular shot. And I'm going to put one of my presets that I use a lot on GFX files outdoor. It's called Warm Melon, and I'll put a link to my preset pack for the GFX below if you want to purchase that. It's what I've, you know, made. I think there's 12 or 13 in there, mostly that I use in different scenarios, and just tweak them a bit. The camera is such an incredible system, and this 55mm 1.7, I'll have this in a review coming up soon. This versus the 45, the 55, obviously the 80 and the 110, all my prime lenses, and show you why I'm really impressed with this 55. I didn't think I was actually going to like it because, you know, I have the 45, the 80, and I was like, I don't really need anything in between, but you know how we are. We always end up needing everything. But this is just incredible to me. That the files are round. All the color is there. It's not like oversaturated color. It's not cartoony. This is that 16-bit color and just incredible sharpness. I'm gonna do this and show you guys. Look at 200% here. Look at this. Are we at 200? Let's go to 200. Look at this. That's me and her eye taking that picture. You know, it's incredible sharpness in this lens at 1.7, and the camera's resolving this all just so incredible. You know, you back out, you go in, there I am. You could actually see like what I'm wearing, yeah, my camera, all that stuff. Incredible. I'm gonna put this back down to 100% because we don't need to go all the way in like that every time. That's crazy. The files are just magnificent. This is crap, just crap lighting. You know, I had to get this done and it was freezing cold. It was like the wind was blowing, tears are coming out everybody's eyes. It was brutal. It was one of those days where you have to keep getting in the car every 5 minutes and getting back out and take some shots. It was one of those days, but I wanted to get this done for you guys. Straight out of camera here, I'm gonna reset it and then put the warm melon preset on there again. I think I pulled the whites up just a bit there, vibrance up just a touch. I mean, it's just incredible. It's really incredible what you can pull off with this out of camera. This is back focused just a little bit on that back eye. I don't know if there's a way that you can choose which eye or if it just does it, but I mean, look, this is when I'm in single shot mode. So these are 16-bit files here, and it's not like this is an epic photo by any stretch, but the colors there, just with crap lighting. That's why the GFX has always been my outdoor camera. People are like, why don't you use it in the studio as much? Well, you're using lighting in the studio, you're trying to convey how cool you can make an image with, you know, creative lighting, all that stuff. You're not going to get so much more unless you're doing like beauty portraits and stuff like that. You're not going to get so much more out of a medium format camera in the studio. I mean, you will, but with flash, if you know how to operate flash, the difference is going to be minimal, because flash makes everything look good if you know how to work it. Outdoor, this thing kills. It's just like you don't have to worry about what the light is like. You know, you can find an area and, you know, put your colors together, neutrals, all that stuff, and then just get some really warm, nice shots. Look at that. That's so pretty, and that's just a preset on a crap light photo, you know, real fast. And I'm just trying to get you guys to understand what the baseline is on this. It's just incredible. Look how sharp that is. I'll put it back to 200 one more time for you guys. This is really good. I can't say enough about this. I think this focus right there, but I can't fault it for that. Nobody's ever going in that far on a photo. I see the same thing with my GFX. If you go in at 100%, it looks incredibly tack sharp. But yeah, I just really talking in circles here, but I want you guys to understand that I feel, and this is my opinion, that these are the best files that you'll ever get out of a camera. Yeah, you can say what you want. The GFX 50R, the 50S2, I've owned both of those. There is a difference between the files between that and the 100 series sensor. It's just a little bit different, but I'm not in the camp of, and I've done videos on that before, of seeing, is there really magic in the 50 over the 100? And I think there's something to be said for it, but it's not like I'm going to be held back shooting on the 100 because I'm worried that the files don't look as good as they do on the 50. It's different. You just learn how to edit them, and I feel like these are more open, you know? I feel like these are more open files. That's incredible for this just basic boring crap light. Alright, so enough of these, and I'll give you some of these raw files to play with as always, so you can see. Now, let's go down here and let's start the test where we actually did base exposure, like a regular exposure, overexposed, underexposed, in 16-bit single shot, and then we did it in 14-bit, and then we did it in 12-bit at 8 frames a second, and see how much of a difference there is. Keep in mind, lighting changes everything. The angle of the light, all that stuff changes everything. So I'm not going to give you my impressions on this yet because I want you to draw your own conclusions. You can download some of these files and check and see. Alright, so here it's gonna be hard to tell the difference, you guys. I wouldn't worry about it, but I'm just gonna do this for you guys. This is a shot where I wouldn't really call it underexposed because the light was high there. I normally expose mine a little bit underexposed anyway on a sensor that's good. So this is like the baseline 16-bit. You can see all the tears in her eyes because it was so damn cold out there. Just go over here and let's go to reset this file and see where we started out. This is going to be an overexposed file here. Okay, bring it back to regular exposure, and all I did right here is just grab this warm melon preset and pull the exposure down, right? And it looks round, it looks warm, it looks great. And you might blow a shot like that once in a while. I don't know how anybody blows a shot like that anymore with such a great viewfinder and LCD. I mean, it just would be a mistake. We all make mistakes, right? But there's not as much difference, and I'll give you some of these for you to check out on your own. And let's go down here and see like probably one of the harder shots to bring back. And now this is in 12-bit mode, okay? And then we'll kind of compare and see if there's much difference at all. And this is pretty damn underexposed. I can't always match them identically. And I'm at f2 right now. I probably bumped the wheel on the lens. I actually don't like that feature. I would rather just do it all in camera. So I brought it back, and I think I did a little bit of yeah, the same thing. And when we go in here, it's still a great file. It has a little bit more noise. I can notice that already, and I feel like the blacks are having a little bit of gray in them, but it's still a nice round file, okay? And that's pretty underexposed at 12-bit. Now this is the overexposed at 12-bit, right? Not like end of the world overexposed. I want to be like anyone who's taking a shot that's all white. You just need to throw that away with any camera. That's ridiculous. You just made a mistake. We all do it, but spend this type of money on a camera if you can't get your exposure at least right. This is for people who are in tricky situations and bad lighting, or wedding photographers, I guess, who have to just deal with what they have to deal with. You know, the results are sometimes you have crap light and you have to get the shot. All right, so let's go back here and go back to, all right, let me show you a couple real quick. I know I'm taking up a lot of time, but some people aren't going to want to download these files. So this is a base shot at 14-bit, you know, brought back. So 14-bit versus a 16-bit, there's not, a great picture is a great picture. There's not a lot of difference. I mean, people love the 50 series cameras, and those are 14-bit. That's as high as they go, you know. I don't think that's where their magic lies. I think the sensor, just the way it handles colors is a little bit different. But the 50 series always has more of a magenta shift to me. Sometimes it can be a little bit much, you know. I've dealt with it for years and been, you know, totally happy. But sometimes it's just a little bit much. So let's go down here to 14-bit overexposed, and I'll show you where this started. This is pretty damn overexposed, and I brought it back. I could probably even bring it back a little bit more down, and you know, it's still a very usable file. So let's grab an underexposed shot here. I'll show you where it starts. Underexposed 16-bit, and let's go to an underexposed where the underexposed 12-bit files, they're right here. Okay, so let's grab this one, and the 3 stars will be 12-bit, 1 star will be 16-bit. There's just at a glance, I mean, can you see any difference? Do we really need to continue this test? There is a difference. Yes, there is a difference, but it's it's minimal. If you told me one was one and the other was the other, I would believe you. You know, I think that if I was using this camera, I would use it in single shot as much as I can, because it's really great for that. It operates, you know, fast. I would use it in low speed continuous most of the time, just to eliminate the blackout. But if I had to put it in 8 frames a second mode, I'm not gonna cry about it. I'm gonna have great files and actually know that I'm, you know, getting 80% of the stuff in focus for, you know, portrait work, which is fine for me. Wide open. If it wasn't wide open, you know, you'd have more in focus. But I mean, you can download these files and check them out yourself. Alright, so just a baseline here. The file on the left is 16-bit, the file on the right is 12-bit, and you know, they're different lighting scenarios and everything like that. But the difference is, I mean, you'd be splitting hairs here, which you would be doing, you know, to try to compare what is what. Now these aren't underexposed or overexposed, these are just the ones that I try to expose with the way I normally expose, so I wasn't pushing and pulling crazy on here. What normal people would be doing, trying to expose for the correct way they like to expose. There's not that much of a difference, you guys. Alright, you guys, so my final thoughts on this camera. I didn't have this camera for long, and I got it with the 55 1.7 thanks to Dan at Fuji. He allowed me to have it for like a week, so I only got to shoot with it a couple times. Nothing professional, just testing and stuff like that. I will say that this is the best medium format camera that I've ever shot. I sold my GFX 50S2 in preparation to buy this camera, because every time I reviewed another Fuji GFX, I was like, this is better, but can it get a little bit better? A little bit better and a little bit better. And I think we're finally at a place where I can use this camera as my full-time camera, you know, if I want to. The build quality is immaculate, which, you know, it matters, but not terribly to me. For this price, it kind of does. But my R5 is built well enough for me to just beat it up all the time, and I haven't had any problems with it. The problem is with my GFX, the focus speed was slow, the video's unusable, the files were just incredible on the 50S2 and the 50R before that. It's just like so slow that it drives me nuts. And I have all these great lenses for the GFX, and now that I'm shooting with this camera, I feel like it can do video. It can do 8 frames a second and nail most of the shots. If you're a wedding photographer, this in natural light is going to be so incredible, because the files, you can just manipulate them however you want and they look really great. Now, if you're a wedding photographer, you're going to have a second body. That's just what wedding photographers do. So you want to have another, probably full frame, just in case, you know, certain shots, walking down the aisle, the kiss, all that stuff. But day to day, as a daily driver, I could use this camera totally and be happy with it, and the lenses are incredible. So this is the one that I was waiting for. I was hoping that I wouldn't like it as much as I did, because it's so damn expensive in relation to what things used to be. It's not really, because when the 100 Mark I came out, you know, the big body one, it was, I think, even more expensive than this one is. So things are coming down, but I think now's the time I'm finally going to buy in and upgrade. So I have all these great lenses, and it's a shame that I've been using my GFX body as my second camera. That's not really how I want to do it. So now I'm going to make the order and go ahead and get this camera, because I think it's going to be a while before they really step it up above this, and I'll be able to get, you know, my money's worth out of this camera in the meantime, instead of having it in my bag and not using it, looking at all these great lenses and saying, man, I wish I could use these on a daily basis. It was just too slow before. Now it's the best that I've ever seen, you know. So I'm excited about this camera. Rent it. Always rent before you buy. And until next time, if there's any questions about this, leave them in the comments down below, and I'll try to answer them for you guys. I love you. It's Marcus. See you later.